This video is brought to you by Incogni. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they are providing to the entire upper echelon community. What is the most popular website on the entire internet? I've heard a number of different answers to that question over the years, but the correct answer is Google, and it's not even close. By itself, the site accounts for well over 100 billion monthly visits, with the second highest number belonging to YouTube, which Google coincidentally owns, only reaching 51 billion. All the way in third place, we can see something like Facebook, but with just over 11 billion monthly visits, Facebook, and anything further down the list for that matter, doesn't even remotely compare. For most people, Google is the beginning, the middle, and the end of their browsing experience. It's the portal through which they access whatever information they want, and it's a mechanism that they honestly never really scrutinize. To most, Google is just a utility. It's a resource. But the sinister reality here is that Google has a veritable stranglehold on practically the entire internet, and over the past couple of years, they've begun tightening their grip. In order to understand the zero-click wasteland, we first need to understand what Google is, how it operates, and most importantly, why it was initially popular. Short version, Google became popular, first and foremost, because it provided a better service. Back in the early days of the internet, a variety of search engines dominated the landscape, but those search engines did a mediocre job, to say the very least. Incessantly peppered with advertisements, distractions, and poor layouts, examples like Lycos and Excite were some of the earliest popular browsers. Over time, the balance shifted, and websites like Alta Vista or Yahoo became much more dominant, but it wasn't until roughly 2002 that the balance would once again shift, this time overwhelmingly in favor of a cleaner, simpler alternative: Google. I could honestly talk about things that Google did right for quite some time. As a design major, I can tell you that the minimalist approach and the negative space felt luxurious. It seemed respectful of the user's time, and above all else, it made the user feel unimpeded as they accessed the rest of the online world. On the back end, Google even provided the best results, by far. What you were searching for and what you actually found typically fit together like puzzle pieces, but without harping on the subject for far too long, the point I'm trying to make is that there was a very good reason why Google became the dominant search platform for the entire internet. To this day, Google controls nearly 90% of the available market, but in the corporate background, behind the product that revolutionized the online world, there is a sinister, tentacled monster which is now on the verge of choking the life out of the very same infrastructure that initially allowed it to prosper. Here we go. Back in the early days, Google didn't really serve advertisements, at least not typically themselves. Advertising has always been a critical part of their business model. It's just that Google sold the ability of serving ads for profit to others instead of relying on it personally. Revenue was modest at the beginning, but over the past 20 years, advertising now composes well over 80% of Alphabet's revenue, Alphabet being the parent company of Google. And if we're talking about one of the most powerful business entities on planet Earth, that means hundreds of billions of dollars. To this very day, there are no ads on the Google homepage. However, and also much more importantly, over its many years in operation, Google began layering advertisements into the actual search results, which in my opinion is a whole lot more damaging. People very often call me a doomer, as in focusing on the worst aspects of technology, but the collapse of online privacy at this point is kind of a foregone conclusion. You can't really stop companies from gathering data on you at this point in time, mostly through end-user licensing agreements and voluntary permissions, which we all throw out like candy. But what you can do is curb the spread of that data wherever possible. Companies maintain a lot of your personal information even after you discontinue whatever service it is, and that information goes on to be sold by data brokers all over the world as part of an information economy which doesn't benefit you, it only benefits them. If you ever wondered why you suddenly have like 10 times the number of scam phone calls or text messages, it's because a data packet about you got sold to a telemarketing company, for example. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but you get the idea. For everyday users, it's nearly impossible to take action. There's hundreds of these data brokers, and it's a lengthy process to contact them, fight objections, and get anything removed. However, Incogni executes that process for you quickly and easily. Overall, it's pretty simple. Sign up for the website, give them legal permission to work on your behalf, and let them know the specifics of what information they'll be having removed. After that, going down the list, they just do it. Aggregating the service lets them streamline the process, and you'll see results pretty much straight away. Less data brokers and third-party marketing companies who have your information means less spam, less hassle, and most importantly, less potential for data breaches. Using the link down below in the description and code Echelon at checkout, you can get 60% off an annual subscription to Incogni. Again, link down below and promo code Echelon for 60% off your subscription. Big thank you to Incogni for continuing to sponsor the channel. Back to it. This is where I have to show a few things so that we can properly understand motivation. Google is systematically updating and optimizing these in-search advertisements. As you can imagine, being the dominant internet gateway allows Google to harvest obscene amounts of money for displaying certain brands at the top of their results. But the way that they showcase these brands has evolved dramatically over time. Early on, as in 2013 and before, advertisements contained a prominently visible wide yellow banner. But at some point, the company decided to change that. Wide, bold yellow became smaller, subtle yellow, which then became green. It was a green banner next to green text, thereby making it far less obvious. But then solid green became a green outline. Eventually, in 2019, the green outline became a tiny dark gray label, which was unveiled in a blog post by Google, reading, quote, "With this new design, a website's branding can be front and center, helping you better understand where the information is coming from and what pages have what you're looking for," end quote. What's most interesting here is that when they make these changes, that is, changes making it harder to tell which of the pages are sponsored advertisements and which aren't, there is a noticeable increase in the amount of traffic generated. Reading from a CNBC post in early 2020, after Google once again tried to make additional changes, further blurring the line between advertisements and regular search results, which they backed away from following massive criticism at the time. Reading from the advertising agencies who were cited in that article, quote, "Since Google's most recent change, Nina Hale found from its clients that the number of times Google users clicked on ads increased by 17% compared with the first half of January. Firms JumpShot and SparkToro jointly saw a 15% increase in the number of clicks on mobile ads in 2019 versus before that launch." And further down from SparkToro founder Rand Fishkin, I'll circle back to him later on, quote, "The new visual format of organic search results closely mimics how the ad label looks in order to obscure a searcher's ability to distinguish between the two, thus increasing ad click-through rate," Fishkin said. "My theory on why this took so long to get to desktop: Google knows it obscures ads and thus increases ad click-through rate and wanted to wait until a quarter in which they needed to show that growth," end quote. So far, so good. But here's a piece of the puzzle I haven't mentioned yet. Google operates its advertising business primarily as what's called PPC, or pay per click, meaning that they only really make money if someone clicks the ad, not just if they see it. What this means by proxy, reinforced by the past 20 or so years of iterative changes, is that Google is directly incentivized to put as many paid links as possible and make it so that users cannot tell which is which. And that's exactly what they're doing. Except it goes deeper, because according to a now deleted article on Wired in reference to specific court documents, Google would selectively alter search queries on the back end so that they could show more ads against them. This is a complicated topic, and the article has since been retracted by the publication, citing editorial standards on that, which might be because Google flatly denied these claims publicly. But there exists an email chain released by the Department of Justice between the ads team and the Chrome team, making it abundantly clear that the company will do whatever they need to for the purpose of hitting ad targets. I read this exchange right here as the ads department pressuring the Chrome team to objectively make a Google product worse for the sake of short-term search query revenue. And they did it. To be clear, when I say whatever they need to, I mean altering design features, obfuscating which links are paid for in the first place, and I also mean replacing the top 1, 2, 5, 7 results even with sponsored posts. Half the first page of results can now be completely dominated by advertisements, depending on what you search for, when those very same positions would previously have been things you actually wanted to read. See the problem? Let's connect a few of the dots, because I haven't even talked about what the zero-click internet even is yet. Google has systematically made it harder and harder to differentiate between paid and organic links. That much we know. At the same time, they add more and more and more of those paid links to your searches, with a substantial impact on the amount of people choosing to click them, with an advertising team that is extremely influential in the company, even when it comes to other products and services. But now it's time to talk about their latest feature, which is AI summaries. There is a feature still being tested and developed at this point, available through a subdivision platform called Google Labs, where AI summary answers will be displayed alongside your questions, or even just general topic searches at this point. Right now, this is mostly an opt-in type of feature, but we also need to recognize that they're rolling this out actively to a broader and broader market. Let's use an example. If I search what is the best wood for chainsaw carving, which is a hobby I picked up a little while ago, the very first thing that I get at the top of the page is a huge AI summary of soft woods, hardwoods, different types and considerations, but all of this information was scraped from the actual results that I would normally visit. Now, me, on a personal level, I despise AI. I'm only using this feature for the sake of demonstration, but a very large number of people, I would say likely the majority at this point, have no issue using a feature like this, probably considering it to be helpful for them. Reading from the first quarter 2024 Alphabet earnings call transcript during CEO Sundar Pichai's opening statement, quote, "We have already served billions of queries with our generative AI features. It's enabling people to access new information, to ask questions in new ways, and to ask more complex questions. Most notably, based on our testing, we are encouraged that we are seeing an increase in search usage among people who use the new AI overviews, as well as increased user satisfaction with the results." End quote. It's pretty clear that most people won't care about this. In fact, if an AI summary can effectively answer your questions or give information about your topics while citing where that information came from, that can be a genuinely valuable feature for a lot of people, again. But let's keep connecting dots. How many web users actually read the sources of an article? How many people entering a Google search actually verify citations? Not many, I can tell you that much. Information literacy is basically at an all-time low and still falling. But the AI summary results at the top of these pages are drawn from actual websites. Here's where it gets messy. For my example, chainsaw carving, the information was clearly scraped from a few different places, one of which is a page called beavercrafttools.com from 2022. This is a pretty cool little operation that they've got going. It's a long, detailed post with information and tips. They have a shop, they sell products. But the traffic that they would normally get, i.e. me in this case, if I was an average person not making a video about this, is being siphoned away from them. The information that they have, which has been up for years, by the way, is now just the footnote of an AI summary at the top of the page, when the summary is then displayed above every other search result that follows. And then, after that summary, come the advertisements and the sponsored brands. In the past, I would have entered this search, navigated my way to a website like theirs or multiple, which may have even shown up at the very top of the page, read the article about wood carving, and maybe even clicked over to their shop and seen if I wanted to buy something. In some cases, businesses will do this and then use affiliate links for the exact type of products that they're talking about. Other times it's just raw information with ads being served on the page. But the bottom line is that this normal, everyday business is having its traffic stolen. Remember the guy we quoted earlier from CNBC about how Google is changing advertisement labels to make it harder and harder to tell what's paid for, which they are? Well, that same guy, Rand Fishkin, ran a study on Google traffic and found that already some 60% of queries are what's called zero-click searches, where the user doesn't click on a single additional website. Obviously, that's good in a lot of cases, for the user at least, because quick questions like what time does a restaurant open or where can I get XYZ product are things that they never have to investigate further. However, the introduction of complex long-form AI summaries, in tandem with Google's endeavor to make advertisements indistinguishable, which are based on scraped results from the websites that would previously have been shown at the top of the page, means that more and more people will navigate to Google, search for something, read an AI overview, and if they want products, click on one of the highest results. Remember, not that I even said this already because I haven't yet, but according to Backlinko, which analyzed a sample pool of 4 million Google searches, only 0.63% of them clicked something on the second page. The overwhelming majority, almost a statistical totality, I guess, of Google searches only ever browse page 1, which is now increasingly dominated by sponsored websites and AI summaries that are scraped from the rest of the results. Let's pull it all together. The zero-click internet wasteland is a negative feedback loop where summary services will regurgitate actual information from real websites, thereby cannibalizing the profitability and traffic of the websites where they get the information. Meanwhile, the traffic, sales, clicks, and ad revenue in particular is funneled into the top websites that directly pay Google, subsequently starving out smaller businesses and pages. If you want an appeal to authority on this, I'm certainly not the only person who's warning about all of it. During an interview with Matthew Prince, CEO and co-founder of Cloudflare, during the Council on Foreign Relations Summit, when asked about the effects of AI on the World Wide Web, Prince had this to say after describing how questions can be answered directly on Google's main page with a scraped summary. Quote, "And so the business model of the web can't survive unless there's some change, because more and more the answers to the questions that you ask won't lead you to the original source. It will lead to some derivative of that source. And if content creators can't derive value from what they're doing, then they're not going to create original content. And I think the smartest AI companies out there, Sam Altman at OpenAI and others, Get that. But at the same time, he can't be a sucker. He can't be the only one paying for content when everyone else gets it for free. End quote. Google dominates an enormous majority of all internet search activity, period. Previously, those searches led to websites, with the first page absorbing over 99% of all generated traffic. Across the past number of years, however, the first page is increasingly usurped by advertisements that are difficult to spot deliberately, that is, on purpose, and now AI summaries that simply harvest the answers you would have found by browsing individual sites before and placing them at the very top. What results from this directly is something called the zero-click internet, which basically means browsing the online world without ever actually clicking into it. As that happens, Matthew Prince is precisely correct. Content creators, at least those that operate in the world of information, have much less incentive to create their work, because the revenue that they would have made no longer goes to them. Sure, there will always be ways to game the system, or types of content that are less affected than others, but Google is making a substantial pivot right now in the very bedrock of what the site offers. In the past, Google was a portal. It was a place that you went to access more. Far from opening the website, clicking nothing, and then walking away from it, people would open that portal and step through it. But with the introduction of zero-click tools, the portal now increasingly resembles a window. The window is large and it can easily be moved and pointed in different directions, but less and less people will ever need to step through it, undermining the entire premise of how the online world has operated up until this point. For Google, it's beneficial, short term. For everyday users, again, it is beneficial short term. But the long-term impact of this is that less and less and less unique user-generated content businesses will be able to operate successfully. AI search results are self-cannibalizing. They're eating the very thing that they build on, which is yet again consolidating the internet, forcing it to exist beneath a shrinking pool of conglomerate businesses, which then pay for their placements in the search results. The zero-click internet wasteland is a content wasteland. It's a version of the internet where less and less individuals or small businesses have motive to post their own original material, because much of that material is just then scraped, parroted, slightly altered, and reposted at the top as an AI overview, which seemingly everyone except the original author massively benefits from. The browsing user gets convenience, the paying customers get traffic, Google gets money, obviously, but the internet becomes a zero-click wasteland. In a twisted way, the very same company that originally opened access to the online world for hundreds of millions of people is now on the verge of single-handedly strangling it. That's it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below, a special VPN deal, locals and Patreon for monthly memberships, merchandise, social media, the video sponsor, of course, our own website with articles instead of videos, and more, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.